Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Aditi from the Asian Ventures team. Asian Ventures is a 33-year-old company dedicated to conservation travel experiences across the globe. Asian Ventures is one of the founding force behind the Global Wildlife Fair, created as a platform that brings together tourism, conservation, creativity, and dialogue around the wildlife and nature. It is It also initiated the Indian Wildlife Network as a collaborative platform connecting storytellers and nature practitioners across the country. Let me walk you through what we can expect from this webinar. Through this webinar, we'll take a closer look at vultures and the history of their conservation in India. We'll explore how public perceptions of vultures have changed and why awareness matters for their protection. The session will introduce walking tours as a conservation tool, creating new ways to connect people with nature. We'll discuss the important role of local communities play in conservation. We'll, and finally, we'll look at how each of us can get involved and contribute to vulture conservation. Now, I would hand over the session to Sir and request him to start with the webinar. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Global Wildlife Fair, for giving me the opportunity to present something on vultures, which we all know that once vultures were one of the most abundant species in uh, Indian landscape, and now they are thriving for their survival. So, without wasting any time, let's get into the webinar. Next slide, please. So, yes, you might ask why we are talking about vultures. So, you might heard about tigers, you might have heard about bustards, you might have heard about snow leopards and many more such species. But vultures, why vultures? So, like tigers are apex predator. When we talk about tigers here, basically they are the apex predator. But who are the apex predators when considering birds? It's vultures and eagles, the raptor family. So, as we always mention that tiger is an keystone species to, if we conserve tiger, we are basically conserving all the trophic, we are providing basically conservation to all the trophic level that is in food web. But we forget that vultures are scavengers. So in food web, we have four key elements. So first is the plants, the second is herbivores, the third is carnivores, and the last one are scavengers. Not like only birds, but scavenger mammals are also there, and scavenging insects are also there. So vultures are scavenger birds. So basically, they are situated at that trophic level. And they have the same level of conservation status as that of a tiger. So they are Schedule 1 species. You cannot handle them without any permission. If you possess any part of it without permission, it's illegal. So, yes, just this is just a brief introduction why we are talking about vultures, because I think many of the people know that vultures have suffered one of the most, like you can say, brutal history they have. They have lost around 95 to 97% of their population, specifically talking about India. And that all I'm talking about the resident species. So I think let's move to the next slide where we will talk about the species that are found in India. So I will start with brief with the history how vulture came into limelight for conservation and how we are transforming it through tourism. So here we will talk about Indian vulture. So India is home to seven resident species and two migratory species. These seven resident species are Indian vulture, which is also called long-billed vulture. You can see in the middle picture on the right-hand side, which is having a brownish color. The second one is obviously white-rump vultures. Third is Himalayan griffon. The fourth, the bearded vultures, which is limited to Himalayan and upper Himalayan regions. Then there is slender-billed vulture, which has a very limited, you can say, distribution across Northeast India. Then there is red-headed vulture, Egyptian vulture, and the migratory ones are basically Eurasian griffon vultures and cinereous vultures. Himalayan griffon vultures are also migratory, but they are resident in India along the upper and lower Himalayan regions. So basically the migratory species are those who are subadults. They migrate towards the plains and then they go back. Basically, this happens during the winter. Yes, next slide, please. So we have divided this particular webinar in four parts. And the first, we will start with the crisis, how and why the crisis happened. Next slide. So, yes, this is a very classic picture that was taken by Gautam. I'm forgetting the name, surname actually is Gautam. This is somewhere from 1990s, and this is from Delhi. And you can see how many vultures are there. Most of them are white-rump vultures here. And yes, white-rump vultures were the most common vulture that was found in India. So the loss began somewhere around 1990s. And at that time, it was just imagine like if you have 50 million birds and a few thousand dies, nobody knows what is the reason of their death. So, because of that, this death got elevated, and within just 10 years, we lost almost, like you can see, white-rump vultures lost 99.9% of their population. Long-billed vultures, 99.7, slender-billed, 97, and even red-headed vultures, 92. And that is what I am talking about in just 10 years. So, we basically, the loss started from 1990s. And yes, next slide. Yes, so nobody understood like when the decline happened in vulture population, what direct impact or indirect impact it had on like all like wildlife and humans. So here are some cutouts that I found, and the impact was obvious. Like when vultures were around, like I'm talking about 50 million in numbers, and within just 10 years they lost almost 95% of their population. Close to like 40 or 50,000 numbers were remaining when it was around 2003. So because of that, there have been recent researches, which have proven that because of loss of vultures, India has lost more than 5 lakh, like India has experienced 5 lakh extra human deaths because of vulture loss. The vulture loss caused the rabies to spread fast through because of increase in rodent numbers, increase in dogs number, like still rabies cases are skyrocketing every day. And yes, because these are efficient cleaners, we will talk in the next slide how what was the reason of their decline. Next slide, please. So yes, so basically in 2000, like the researches were going on, and the main reason that was at that time was found to be a pain relieving drug called diclofenac. You might be aware of this, that humans still use this for pain relieving. So diclofenac was found to be the main culprit, and I have here one picture. Like if a carcass is infected, like you're not, I would say infected. If a carcass is having a trace of diclofenac, when vultures consume that, you can say diclofenac laced meat, uh, their kidney fails within 48 hours. And if the diclofenac, you can say, is larger in quantity, they can die within 24 hours because of kidney failure. So this diclofenac was triggering the uric acid, you can say, deposition on their kidneys, and the kidneys were failing. So just here, see if a carcass is having a trace of diclofenac, how many vultures can die in a single go? All right. So what happened is that these kind of cases started happening all over India. And why we lost most of the population in India was due to this diclofenac, and we lost the adult population, the breeding population. So just I am giving an idea why, like to understand how this population decline happened. Imagine a migratory species, like strictly migratory species, coming to India and feeding on diclofenac and then dying, and a resident species which is feeding on diclofenac and dying. So the breeding pair of migratory species are definitely in different country or different space where the diclofenac might not be present. Let's assume there is no diclofenac at that time there. So there is the breeding pair, and in India we have the breeding pair in our landscape. So the migrating ones are mostly subadults. They are not the breeding pairs. The breeding pairs are residing there. But in India, there is local migration happening with vultures. So we have breeding population as well as non-breeding population. So if we have like 10,000 vultures of resident species and 10,000 vultures of migratory species, so those 10,000 vultures of migrating species only, like, they will be laying 10,000 eggs, especially like if you consider the migrating species. And in India, they will be having laying 10,000 eggs. After they hatch, so the migrating species, 10,000 will be migrating. Let's assume 10,000 all are migrating. And in India, 10,000, like the subadults, as well as we have like 5,000 more that will, like 10,000 more will be traveling. So, after some maths, I actually concluded this, like I was just concluding this, and it actually horrified me. So, the Indian species, if they are feeding on a diclofenac laced carcass, the population will decline down to 4,000. Like the next year, if the egg laying mature stay alive, then there will be 4,000 egg that will be laid. But for migrating species, that will be standing at 10,000 only, because the migrating ones will not reach there. All right, they will definitely die somewhere in between. The breeding pairs are already there. So that's why we lost the resident population to this drug. And it was just exponential. Okay, and the diclofenac, the one thing with diclofenac was that it was an intramuscular injection. So you can just inject, like anyone without any knowledge of injecting veterinary drug can inject with the you can, if you have the vial. Yes. So next slide, please. So yes, this was the effect. Like in 10 years, we lost 95% of the population, and mostly vultures feed on ungulates. Ungulates means cows, buffaloes, deers, nilgais, sambar deers. Basically, the bigger animals, they are mainly vulture diet is the bigger animals. They definitely feed on small animals, but that is opportunistic. So these drugs were mainly the culprit, and this was the normal scene. Like a single carcass can take down at least 200 to 300 vultures. So if there is a carcass and vultures are landing, that carcass will be finished within, like, if it has from 150 to 200 vultures landing on it, that carcass will be finished within 20 to 30 minutes. That's how fast they feed on the carcasses. Okay, so yeah, next slide. So, yes, we are standing in 2026, and the loss actually began in 1990s, but in 2006 there was one major step that was taken. So, yeah, next slide. So then came the ban. Basically, Indian government took action and banned the drug called diclofenac. It banned the 30 ml vial at that time, but 90 ml vial was still available, but it was later banned as well. Later, we found that it's not just diclofenac, there are three more. We call them NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. So these drugs were banned, and it's a good step that it was banned. But if we see the vulture numbers in the next slide, that will be concerning. So in 2006, as per the records, there were 40,000 vultures remaining. Just imagine 40 million to just 40,000 within 10 years. So yeah, next slide, please. Yes. So at that time, 2006, there were protocols to save vultures, and they introduced Vulture Conservation Breeding Center and establishing vulture safe zones. And we are standing in 2026, thinking that we might have achieved successfully, but um, like we have lost further 53% vultures. Like this, you can see here, and mainly due to, not mainly due to, I would say, diclofenac, but because of several reasons. So in Rajasthan, they died of NSAIDs. In Raigad district, they died of because of typhoon, okay, cyclone. In Jaisalmer, again, NSAIDs. In Kamrup, they died because of a carcass was laced with poison. And again, in Surennagar because of NSAID. So this proves that even after the ban, NSAIDs were very actively sold. And the reason diclofenac was readily available because it is cheaper alternative compared to the safer options that are available in the market right now. So if diclofenac is available for like 20 to 50 rupees, the safer alternative almost cost around three times, 150 to 200 rupees. So like farmers and dairy producers basically running low on money, they don't want to invest in the drugs that is safe for vultures. They basically go for diclofenac. So that was the reason, and the actions that were taken, but like conservation breeding centers were set up, seven vulture safe zones were identified in several districts, several, I would say, different landscapes in India. And from there on, we obviously must have thought like something must have gone right. But yes, the records as of 2015 stand at 18,600 vultures, which is further concerning because some of these species are standing at only 500 or 800 individuals in India. And out of that, a few, like I would say, one-eighth of the population died uh, last year. So, yes, the actions were taken, but the actions were not fruitful, you can see. So, yes, next slide, please. Now you might be thinking of the current status, right? And here comes the dilemma. In the parliament, the estimated population that was given was around 33 to 34,000. You can see the numbers here. In the WII report of Pan India assessment of vultures, Pan India, I'm talking about all over India, they have only found around, like, exact numbers. 1990, an active nest of four species. Just imagine it comes to around 4,000 vultures. If you can see, if we consider that this is only the 50% vultures we have counted, then also it is a very worrying number. And see the dilemma. Like in parliamentary report, we are having 33,000 numbers, and in Pan India assessment report, we have like only 6,000. I am taking it to the higher side, like 6,000 vultures. Why this data discrepancy is there? You have seen earlier as well in the previous slide that there were 40,000 to now 18,000 vultures. From 18,000 now in 2017, they suddenly became 33,000. Now in Pan India assessment, by the Wildlife Institute of India, prestigious institute, I don't doubt their assessment. That concerns me a lot. Like we are remaining with a few more. Like, I don't think that if this number is there, then even after significant steps, we won't be able to save them after 10 years. But let's be positive because, uh, next slide, please. Yeah, I will talk about this, like why we failed. So there were several reasons for failing on in vulture conservation. Like the idea of breeding center was good, but yes, if you are breeding it in breeding center, if we want viable population in our environment, then they are definitely going back into our normal environment. But the problem was we were not focused on vulture safe zone creations and making safe zones for vultures where vulture can basically be released and they can thrive. So you might have also heard that the vultures have you will see vultures like recently 25 vultures died due to poisoning in Uttar Pradesh. Recently there were six vultures died in Panna. So because of poisoning, again, not diclofenac, but of pesticide poisoning. So basically, we are now, getting into a loop where we are threatening ourselves. Why I say this? Because vultures are one of the most efficient cleaners, and the sheer numbers that used to be there has caused because the decline was very huge. So it has caused the farmers to resort to burying the carcasses. So earlier they can just throw and wait for vultures to land, finish it, and it's all done. But now these carcasses are becoming zones for diseases like rabies, anthrax, and several more diseases which we might not know because these carcasses are now rotting. And yes, other scavengers they definitely consume, but they are not efficient. You might ask, like, hyenas are also scavengers. Yes, hyenas are scavengers, but they are not efficient scavengers. They will eat some part and they will just leave the rest. So vultures, basically, if like 150 or 200 or even 50 vultures land on a carcass, it will be done by the end of the day. Done like you can differentiate if a mammal has eaten a carcass or a vulture has eaten, the bones will be like squeaky clean, shiny. That means vultures have fed on it. So, yes, we failed at many points, but the story doesn't no end here. We, as like I saw my first vulture back in 2021. It was just a casual trip to one of the places in Madhya Pradesh. And while I was watching waterfall, I saw three species right away within 5 minutes. It was Egyptian, red-headed vulture, and this Indian long-billed vulture. So I was actually shocked by the size of it. And with the size, I just want to show you I have a feather of a vulture. Um, I cannot show the size of it. It is almost as big as like 2 to 2.5 feet. It's a tip feather. So you can imagine the size of a vulture, how big it can be. So the vultures, basically, the Indian vulture is the one in the picture, if I talk about, they have a wingspan of around 2.5 meters. 2.5 meters. I am not kidding. And the biggest one that comes to India, Cenarius vulture, it has almost a wingspan around 3 to 3.3 meters. You can imagine the size now. Just try to, gather. Like one vulture is of like the one feather, like one, yes, one wing is of my height. I am 5'10", 5'11". So one wing is around my height. So yes, the next slide, we will be getting into the good part of vulture conservation through tourism. So with tigers, you might have seen, like, yes, the tourism transformed the whole concept of tiger conservation. If you don't see it, you don't believe it. And if you don't believe it, you don't want to put efforts toward conservation or conserving or watching that species in your lifetime again. So yeah, next slide, please. So when I saw my life's first vulture, it triggered something in me to know more about vultures. And from there on, I never stopped learning about vultures through online things, through books. But later I realized that the best knowledge that I got was from the community members that were living close to there. And I had this curiosity, like, to everyone I met in that landscape. I just asked one question, like, show me vultures. Do you know about vultures? How do you perceive vultures? So most of us have heard about this, like everybody, because why vultures are not being into conservation, like not taken into conservation because they are look ugly. But there comes the community part where when I asked about how do you see vultures, and they said that they are beautiful birds. We actually, see them eating, feeding on a carcass. And I have literally seen them sitting with chair in their, you can say farm and watching vultures finishing the carcass. And they just talk about it. Oh, how beautiful it is, how big they are. So casually. And like, we think that we perceive them as bad omen. It's not bad omen. It's actually good omen. So these community members that I met over the last 5 years have helped me uh, lead this idea of conserving vultures. If I ask any one of you, like, do you know how many people are working in tiger conservation? At least 1,000 NGOs are working towards tiger conservation, and now countless people, individuals. When I ask about vulture conservation, how many people you can, actually imagine or actually comes into your mind that are working towards vulture conservation? I can bet no one. And if you are like from a conservation background, then you can name 2 to 3 people. That's it. That's it. Like, we have lost 97% of some bird population, and there are only 3 to 4 people or some like several countable NGOs working towards conservation. That is not how we can conserve vultures, right? So from there on, I started talking to communities about vultures, about their landscape. How do you see birds? How do you see things? And they led me to a few places where I saw a place where there were, 60-meter patch of rock paintings. And I can like say that they are as old as 8,000 years. So they led me to those places which were untouched. And yes, there is one myth that goes around communities. I asked often that from when on you see that vultures started to, their numbers started to go down. So they always mention that should I say the good one or should I say the bad part? So I said, whatever you like. So this is not an offensive line, it's just the normal talks. So they mentioned since the Brahmins started eating meat, these vultures started declining. And this is very common talk across the community. Like, if you ask a Brahmin community, they will say that the tribal people started hunting them. And if you ask the tribal communities, they will start that when the Brahmin started the eating meat, these vultures started going off. This is just a myth, and I'm just mentioning it because this goes on in the talk, and this is how you have to interact with them. So, how communities helped shape this is I started talking to community, started to understand how they do work here. So we propose like earlier in that village, what used to happen is there was a community center at the village center, and there were several carcasses there of cows, buffaloes, and goats. So they were rotting there, and it was unbearable. Like you cannot stand there for even second. So I just proposed them like. Are these your cows or are these your buffaloes or these cattle are your own? So they mentioned yes, and I mentioned why you are throwing it into the dense canopy and these shady places. So they mentioned that it smells a lot. So um, I started mentioning to them that please just throw the carcasses if you have, because these village owners do not use any medicines, and whatever medicines that are in use are safe. We have run several surveys here, and we have got to know that these drugs are not in, like the banned drugs are not in use here. So we encourage them to throw these carcasses in the fields. So these community members have, you know, a few started listening to me, and then there on it the chain reaction started. So they want to know more about the work, what how we can help, what kind of things we can help in. So currently the communities that we are working with, I am the assistant naturalist. I always call myself an assistant because the lead naturalist is from those community. They will take you through the landscape, uh, and they will show you everything. I am there as a translator who will help you translate those things because the dialect there is Bagheli, which is not that easy to understand, but yes, I can help. So they are now managing that, they are running the walking tours that we are doing. They are doing the man like carcass dumping at specified spots that we have asked to them. They are helping us in finding new vulture colonies. And we have recently, like this year on only, we have found 25 more nests of Indian vulture and Egyptian vultures. And yes, I have this idea of conserving through communities. And yes, they have helped me a lot. So, yeah, next slide, please. So the results I am here showing you, it might look impressive, but it can go down within, just a day. So we have to be very careful. So we started all our researches like back in 2021. I started exploring on my own and documenting species of anything. Like I was doing ecological surveys, not a species survey. So, and I don't talk like I don't want to sound like I was doing a proper survey kind of survey. It was just my interest. I love to play with numbers. And I want to know more about numbers and how these numbers are moving around. So, yes, we started some things, we started observing vulture colonies in 2021. So we found several colonies there. And back then we saw around 90 long-billed vultures, around 20, 15 to 25 Egyptian vultures, and there was only one red-headed vultures that could be seen. Like it took me 3 years to see a red-headed vulture family. And yes, we started. So one more important thing that I want to mention is that this area that we are working in is not under any conservation or not under any protected areas. This is human dominated landscape I'm talking about. There are reserve forests, but mostly human dominated landscape. But still, there are 136 species of birds that are thriving. I have forgotten to add two more that I saw recently. But yes, the numbers are increasing on a day-to-day basis. The mammal species, yes, except tigers, almost there is everything. In 2023, I have seen a caracal there, and I was too shocked to see a caracal because when I asked the community members, they mentioned that there are two of them, and I was shocked to see only one. And yeah, so basically, the you can see the results that we just pulled off within, like I would say 5 years. And in 5 years, we were able to, almost triple the population of vultures present there. And I won't take the credit. It's all the community member. We have no financial support. We were funded by no NGOs. It's just, the passion to save this species from whatever means I can do. And their community members helped. They help voluntarily. Yes, I definitely give them incentives when it is mandatory to give them incentives to, keep their confidence up. Like we can do this thing as they're living. So I managed, my wife managed everything. So earlier we were have like I was having no job, she was doing job, so she was funding this. Then we both were like we basically left our job and getting into this was full time. So yes, from there we started this community. Had this idea of how we can transform this. Like we know that funding was the main thing, so how we can raise funds and awareness at the same time. So then came the next idea. Yeah, next slide, please. So we thought of why not start something related to vultures and tourism. Because, yes, I have seen in other countries in Europe, in Africa, that there are tourism related to vultures, but why not in India? And that too, when we have faced, I think, one of the most catastrophic decline in some species. Like vultures are one of the most threatened species in the world right now, and Indian vulture specifically. So we thought of why not transform this as a tourism opportunity as well as the funds that we will be getting from the tourism. We will right away, fund the conservation efforts because without money you cannot run a conservation efforts. That's a true fact. And with local communities, they seek you with, desperation that, yes, this guy, if he's doing something with us, he will give us some kind of incentives. He will give us some kind of new livelihood options that we can explore and we can help in, apart from the activities they are doing, like farming and other things. So we thought of responsible tourism, and the first thing that came into mind is the walk, which I used to do to search vulture colonies, like going through creeks and walking around the edges of forest, walking at the ravines, watching the beautiful waterfalls. And then I defined some things for the responsible tourism. Like for responsible tourism, you have to include the local communities. If you are not including local communities, um, later in the conservation journey, they are going to back off, and the whole thing that you thought of, that you built around, I would say yourself or communities, it's not going to pay off. The idea of walking was to ensure slow and immersive experience. You might have, like several of you might have went, like I also have went on several tiger safaris. And the only thing that I found um, interesting was animals, nothing else. Like there is no time to observe the forest. There is no time to, if you see some butterfly, they're not going to stop. It's very hard in today's time that you will find a guide or a driver so good that they will just stop anywhere when you ask. So it was very fast paced, and I don't like observing wildlife at a fast pace. So I started to think of why not introduce something when you are walking on a foot. You will observe species, you will like bird species, you will observe plants, you will observe trees. Even if there is something resin, like recently when I was having a walk in the forest, I found a tree which was having a resin on it, and I was very curious to know like what kind of resin it is. So the local boy actually mentioned that you just dip into the water and you can early morning you can eat. And when I actually took the resin, it was very fragrant. And later I got to know that it was Indian frankincense tree. So these kind of things actually I want to involve this, like you can say, include a slow immersive experience. And this slow immersive experience is not just not species focused, it is ecology at large. Because vultures cannot thrive alone. Okay. Here also why vultures are thriving because hyenas are there, jackals are there. Um, Obviously, dogs cannot tear a carcass apart. And there are a few vultures which can tear a carcass, but most of the vultures don't have that strong beak to tear the skin and reach the the muscles and other parts of the carcasses. So a hyena can just see this. I would say the chronology. A leopard hunts a cow or a cattle. Then jackals and other you can say hyenas come and shear it apart. And as the carcass is open, the vultures land and finish it off. So basically, the carcass is done in like 2 or 3 days, maximum 3 days. Okay, so yes, the tourism idea is to sponsor the conservation activities, right? Yeah, next slide, please. So I would say, yeah, next slide, please. This three pictures is what I would say the work that we have done. Previous slide, please. Previous slide, please. One more previous, please. Yeah. So these three pictures actually define the impact that what these communities have made. So the first picture that you see, there is a carcass and there are several vultures on the carcass. And this carcass was actually thrown into the back bushes that you see. And I somehow convinced the owner of the cattle that please throw the carcass in the field. I asked about the history, if it was injected with some medicine or not. So they said nothing. So he actually was very hesitant to throw the carcass. I actually insisted him that if the carcass is not finished by the end of the day, I will personally help you bury the carcass the very next day. And he was somehow convinced, and he just through the carcass. This is just 1/3 of the vultures that landed. On that particular day, I have counted 120 vultures of 6 species landed on this carcass. And that cattle owner was astonished to see that many vultures landing on a carcass and finishing it. It is because of the community that these many vultures were able to get food. Okay, the second picture is you can see the boy, he is studying in ninth standard, and he is one of the finest naturalists that I have met in the local landscape, and he is leading our walking tours. He basically takes the guide, like the participants, to explore everything, and he will explain you each bit of things. Studying in ninth standard, and he has immense knowledge. Like every time I go into village, I just go blank-headed. And the third picture is very powerful. These are juvenile vultures of the newest generation. These are only 4 months old. So we were able to pull off successful nesting just because we were able to make sure that these vultures were getting ample food supply. And currently, the last year's estimate suggests that we have reached almost 95% nesting success rate. So nesting success rate is basically when the egg is laid in a nest and the hatchling is now able to fly. So we have achieved 95% success rate, and while we were observing around 45 to 50 nests of these vultures. So that's a very good, promising number that was possible just because of these communities. Yeah, next slide. I will just try to run this fast because we will have to do some questionnaires as well. So yeah, next slide, please. And yes, so the last vulture is giving or basically providing you an experience to not only witness vultures, but their ecology and how they interact with humans, how they interact with other species, how other species interact with these vultures. So in total, currently we have documented 22 raptor species at this single place. And the area that we are right now into our conservation is around 300 square kilometers. And yes, the next slide, please. So we are offering the walk. There you will be walking through the villages, through the forest to see vultures, mammals, waterfalls, tracking wildlife, like old rock paintings. Here you can see you can see at a time 100 to 150 vultures at any point of time. In winters, if you come, like it's heavenly sight. You can see mammals, you can see waterfalls. There are at least seven waterfalls in only in our 300 square kilometer region, and all waterfalls are beautiful, like around 100 to 130 meters high. We also have one of the highest waterfalls in Madhya Pradesh as well, where vultures are thriving. And you can see vultures up close. You can get to know about the history of this landscape through rock paintings, and you will be tracking the mammal species that are thriving in this human-dominated landscape. Mind it, this is human-dominated landscape. This is not a conservation reserve or any wildlife park. Next slide, please. So our offering is simple. We take you to a classic home, like village homestay experience. Traditional food is given to you. So basically, the communities that we are working with have a Bagheli dialect. So there are Bagheli food, absolutely tasty food. Like you will love it. So you will have Bagheli food. You will stay in homestays far away from city noises. You will see rock paintings. You will understand how vultures observation and conservation is done. And you will meet with local community members and how they are helping us and how they are helping us to shape this thing. And yes, you can see experience. And yeah, so the next slide has a small video of just 1.5 minutes that will, brief the experience. Yeah, next slide, please. The video will be slightly jittery because it's heavy. Okay, so yes, so to save the vultures, the time is actually now. And if you are not going to consume them, then these are definitely going to be the last vultures. And the last vultures was formed on this idea that either this is the last vulture that we are going to conserve, or this is going to be the last vulture that is going to be seen. So Yes, the idea of the last vulture is up to you how you perceive it. I perceive is that this is the last vulture that I'm going to conserve, that it won't require conservation in future. Thank you so much. I hope you like the webinar and the things that I have explained. And yes, we are now open to question and answer. I'm so sorry we have left with only 10 minutes, but okay, I will right away give to Kritika for this.
First of all, what a dynamic webinar to combine the elements of how conservation can be taken to the next level, bringing in the element of homeliness as well as infusing empathy within the people. And with this, we move to the Q&A session. So the first question that we are taking is of Sai Agarwal sir. Sir wants to ask which animals are treated with diclofenac drug and the reason for it.
So basically, diclofenac was mainly used for cattle owners by cattle owners and um, mainly cows and buffaloes. So this medicine was, it's called an anti-inflammatory drug. Basically, whenever a cattle is going through an operation or any kind of severe pain, a post-operation pain, so these drugs used to given to them to, relax basically the pain. These are basically pain relievers. We human also take diclofenac, nimesulide, all these things for, the pain relievers. It's the same reason for cattle also.
So after this, the next question we have is of TV Ramprakash sir. And sir wants to ask, is diclofenac still available?
So yes, in some specific regions, like illegal diclofenac sale is going on, and these prominent regions currently are Gujarat, Rajasthan, and some parts of Madhya Pradesh as well. So yes, diclofenac is still persistent after, it's been 20 years of ban, but still the sale is not being regulated till now.
Another question by sir that do these drugs impact all species?
Mainly vultures were affected, but recent study has found that some of the medicines are also risky for eagles. I'm not sure which medicines, but yes, it is also lethal to other animals.
So the next question we will be taking is by Kim Bhattacharya sir, and he wants to ask what is the lifespan of the vultures?
So in wild, these long-billed vultures can thrive to around 40 to 42 years, and mostly the gyps species, these long-necked ones, live around that age. And Egyptian vultures have around the smallest one in that is in India has around 35 to 38 years of lifespan.
Amazing, that is. And with this, we take up the next question of Manju ma'am. She wants to ask you, sir, do local communities you visited see vulture as an asset?
Yes, definitely. They see vulture as, vultures were part of their life. They never saw them as a culprit or a heinous kind of bird or that kind of thing. They always praised, like the image of vulture in their mind was beautiful. I was actually shocked to know that they perceive vultures like such a good bird because it is not everywhere. But yes, as I mentioned, that they sit on the chair to watch vultures feeding on a carcass.
That incident was even something that really amazed me, and the examples you give, how you actually connected it via myth and a community, that was truly engaging. I think the first time I've heard such an incident happening, but truly
It
amazing.
is. It is there. It
Yeah.
is.
So next question is again by Ramprakash sir, and he wants to ask, what's the timeline from hatching to the juvenile level?
So, the hatching period of egg is around like incubation period is around 55 to 63 days. And after 63 days, the hatchling, basically the juvenile, will be out. And from there on till the vulture is able to fly, it's almost around the same time. It like 63 to 80 days. So if you see from egg to flying, it's all close to 3 to 4 months.
So, Sai sir wants to ask about the details of the vulture walk, like where is it, the location, for how many days, and the cost for it.
So I have given the details in the la last slide actually. You can visit our Instagram page, the last vulture, and you can personally reach out to on my contact number that is also mentioned there, where we can actually supply you with all the things.
So, participants, whosoever want the details, please don't forget to visit the page of the last vulture for further details. And with this, the next question is by Gitanjali Dhar ma'am, that any plans to replicate the Nepal model of vulture restaurant?
We are not going with the vulture restaurant thing. We are actually trying a different method here because while observing vultures here, we realize just I will brief it in 2 minutes. There are cow shelters which host almost 8,000 cows, and they go out into forest every day for foraging. So some of the cows who which are not healthy, they die on their way. And you will see when as soon the cows get out, these vultures start surrounding over the pack of cows, and they will start watching them, and basically they randomly spot the carcasses. It's not like we are putting carcasses on a single place because they are adapted to that thing. So we are not going with the vulture restaurant thing. We are going with the distributive, you can say, carcass method thing, where we are pointing out places where vultures can land.
Interesting. And I think the next question is by Kim sir again, that where are the vultures most prevalent now?
So currently, the largest population of vultures is in Madhya Pradesh. And last year, I think this year's number is somewhere around 9,000 resident species are there. And the next, I would say, will be Rajasthan. So the prevalent in Madhya Pradesh and then will be Rajasthan and the upper Himalayas.
That's interesting. And I think there are a lot more questions, and I think we'll be taking next by the name of the user
Just a
is
second, can you please go back one slide so that they can actually have the contact
the
details?
details. Yeah.
Yes.
So participants, that's the Instagram handle, and there are the contact details which you can visit and know more about this. So with this, we take up another question that now vultures from conservation breeding centers are released in the wild. So can you explain what can be the best practices for their survival after their release in the wild?
So, there is no hard fast rule for best practices. Basically, the concept of vulture safe zone was introduced because we knew that vultures from breeding center will be going out into the wild. So they definitely need a safe zone where we can actually release these birds because the breeding center birds are quite sensitive. The ones that are born in wild, born and raised in wild are quite rugged, but the ones that are bred in captivity are slightly fragile and they are, more, you can say, they are weaker, they need time to adjust to their environment. So they need the utmost care. And for that utmost care, we actually need to work on vulture safe zone. And vulture safe zone is an area of 100-kilometer radius where all these toxic medicines are under 5% usage. So there are several protocols by Save Asia's Vulture from Extinction, where basically the Save Consortium, which has defined some rules. So I would say that we actually need to work on Vulture Safe Zone to actually be able to get a good numbers with breeding centers survivability.
I think another question by Sir, that can you shed light on vulture getting electrocuted by power lines? I think that is actually one of the most prevalent issues that we are coming across in the country.
Yes, right now, like I have been also observing this electrocution thing in Rajasthan and Nilgiris that this is happening. But I'm not putting this aside. I have seen vultures dodging electric lines. in our areas also, because there are hydropower plants, and there are thermal power plants, so there are a lot of power lines going on. And I have actually seen vulture going to the power line and dodging it. And I have several pictures with me that there are hundreds of vultures sitting on a particular high tension towers. And yeah, till now I haven't seen, but yes, it is a prevalent issue, and it's not an issue of vulture being electrocuted. It's a design fault, and that design is now into consideration, and they are taking vulture designs into, I think, action.
I think the example that you shared of the vultures actually dodging it is a classic example of how they are adapting to the modern society, and it's
Exactly.
something definitely we can definitely look forward to. So, with this, we come to the next question by Anuj Kandpal sir, who wants to ask which organizations are particularly working for conservation of vultures? Are they backed by the government?
Um, there are I have met two people. One is Prem Sagar Mestri, who is working in Maharashtra's Raigad region, and I have met Mr. Bharti Dasan from Arulagam in Nilgiris. Both of these people are doing exceptional work in their landscape, and um, currently, I'm not sure if they are backed by government or not, but they are backed by funding from other organizations, definitely. And yes, their work is exceptional, but just two people cannot save vultures from extinction in India. We need more such people. I, being into this field, I know these two people. I've met these two people and I've seen their work, but I'm still looking for more people who are working towards vulture conservation in India.
And with this, we take up Shrishti Mam's question. Okay, she had asked for the presentation of the last slide for the
Okay.
detail. Yeah. And then another question by Shelvi Gopinath ma'am that do vultures hunt or feed only on carcasses?
No, vultures cannot hunt. So, in eagles, you might have seen their beaks are very curved, sharp, and their talons are like very, they close in itself. But with vultures, if I can, relate to this, if I tell you to, catch a ball from your leg, will you be able to? No. So that's what vultures' feet are like. Their feet are just like humans, so they cannot catch or hold. Even for feeding their juveniles, they have an extended crop, extended, you can say, pouch where they actually store the food and regurgitate to feed the juveniles. So they do not hunt, and never be afraid of vultures because they hunt. They are predominant scavengers.
So we'll take up one last question, and that is by Gitanjali ma'am. That what about B and HS?
Um, I want some clarity, what do you want to know about, what about BNHS?
I think she wants to ask about the contribution of BNSS towards vultures and conservation. Yeah,
So
I think
yes,
about conservation.
about concepts. So yeah, so basically the breeding center concept was brought up by BNHS, and it is still undertaken by BNHS, and they are doing good work with breeding. Like India has the largest conservation breeding centers in the world for vultures. But yes, that being said, we actually want to make sure that these vultures that are bred in captivity are surviving outside after the release. That's when the conservation, we can say that this conservation has gone successful.
So one last question. I think this will be surely be the last because after such a wonderful presentation, people are bubbling with questions, and I think this last one we'll take for sure is that why population vulture population is less in South India.
Uh, Basically, vulture population is less in South India because firstly, it is forest dominated. And there are only two specialized species that can navigate through forest is the white-rump vultures and the red-headed vulture. Egyptian vultures are also included, but the red-headed and white-rump vultures are primarily the ones that navigate and through forest. And basically, they are tree nesters as well. So there are two things in southern India. there is more availability of wild animals as carcass compared to cattle. So cattle are mostly reared in the central to northern regions, and in the lower regions, cattle are reared, but they are not basically because the cow selling and everything is legal there. So basically, that is going like buffaloes are going into butcher houses, and then they are going to processing the meat. So there is no leftover for vultures. So basically, the numbers of vultures are directly proportional to the food availability. If the food availability is less, the vultures will be less there. That's I think is the primary reason why vultures are less in southern India.
So, with this, we come to an end of a very dynamic webinar. First of all, thank you so much, sir, for bringing out, especially sharing your experiences about vultures, what your experience has been so far. And by and large, I think over the years, we have realized it is one of the most misunderstood species.
Definitely,
And I think like walks like these, initiatives like these by people like you, it will definitely throw much more light on them and also bring them in the conservation forefront.
definitely,
For participants, I would like to say that for more such webinars, do not forget to follow our Instagram page, and where you will get updates about more such stories. And to connect with more such stories in person, we definitely look forward to see you in the upcoming session of the Indian Wildlife Network that is on 21st of this month, and it will be held in Delhi at the WWF Auditorium, Lodi Road. So, before we sign off, a quick note from our end that at Asian Adventures, the Global Wildlife Fair, the Indian Wildlife Network, and Earthworks, we believe that meaningful conservation can only begin by one means, and that is meaningful conservation. Talking about it. We hope that today's webinar offered fresh perspective, valuable insights, and inspiration that you may carry forward in your own work. Thank you for joining us and being a part of this growing community. We definitely look forward towards welcoming you in another session. Thank you, everyone. A very good evening.
thank you.